It's been a crazy week.
Yeah.
Very sad news to get into today. We're just going to cover what we need to cover here today. Unfortunately, we had an unfortunate death that happened in the world of the NFL. The most shocking of all deaths. When I heard the news, I was dumbfounded.
Me too.
Heartbroken. I felt like my heart was ripped out of my chest in the very moment that I got this news.
Yeah.
Former legendary head coach and broadcaster John Madden passed away at the age of 85 this week.
Yeah.
This is episode 11 of Let Us Interrupt You Here. Here is the final podcast, unfortunately, for 2021. Of course, we'll be around for 2022, but in this case here, I'm Joseph Olivo.
And I'm Michael Smith.
Okay. John Madden, the legendary broadcaster and legendary head coach, Pro Football Hall of Famer in the class of 2006, dies at age 85. Died this past Tuesday. Really, you gotta know this information, and I know a lot about John Madden. If you haven't figured it out right now, I mean, he's one of the greatest broadcasters of all time, and really he basically was an icon in the broadcasting business. And this is a guy
and in the world of football
who, ironically, never really wanted to be a broadcaster. He didn't even like the idea of even doing it. He liked football. He still wanted to be a head coach, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. He had to retire at 42 years of age. The stress got to him, and he thought, by doing this, it was beneath. He felt it was beneath him. But when he started out in CBS Sports, broadcasting for them, and everything changed. He changed the whole dynamic in the broadcasting world. But before we get to that, we'll talk about his personal life, where he was born. He was born on April 10th, 1936 in Austin, Minnesota. He went to Daly City, California, Jefferson High School. Went to Cal Poly for college. He was drafted in the NFL in 1958, round 21, his 244th pick. He was an offensive tackle. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles. He actually, believe it or not, was an assistant head coach for Hancock College from 1960 to 1961. He was a head coach for the team from 1962 to 1963. He was a defensive coordinator for San Diego State for 2 years from 1964 to 66. And his NFL coaching days was in the process. He started out as a linebacker coach for the Oakland Raiders, and he eventually was a head coach for the Oakland Raiders from 1969 to 1978, leading them to a Super Bowl 11 win against the Minnesota Vikings, his only Super Bowl win in his career. He was the AFL champion obviously he was part of the AFL, but he was the AFL Coach of the Year in 1969. He retired from coaching at the age of 42 with a win-loss record of 103, 32 losses, and 7 ties. Playoff record overall is 9-7. His overall record, statistics-wise, according to this right now, is 112, 39, and 7. So, what do I say about John Madden? He is
icon.
He is an icon. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves 2 Hall of Fame presentations. One for his football, really for his coaching career, really, and one for broadcasting, in my opinion. He changed the broadcasting world forever. He completely changed the dynamic of how football was called. He changed the direction of it. Articulation skills was great. He was one big giant. You look at him as in his younger days with his red hair and his big face. That face is intimidating, believe it or not. He was an intimidating figure in the coaching world. When you're going against John Madden, he means business. And he meant business in the broadcasting world as well. Everybody, took to it in a certain way, really. He started out with Vince Scully. He went with Pat Summerall. I think I said the last name wrong. I apologize. And he also was broadcast partner with Al Michaels on ABC and NBC Sports. He spent a lot of time in CBS, went to Fox. Fox wanted him, and Fox got him a great broadcasting partner. And then he went to NBC and ABC for the final 7 years of his broadcasting career. He was broadcasting, I believe, from the 1980s to 2009. So that was a good time to be a broadcaster at that point. He didn't really want to do it at first.
Yeah.
But he eventually took into it. And I think he made a difference in everybody out there.
He became one of the best.
Yeah. He certainly made me motivated into getting into broadcasting. He's one of the reasons why I'm going to get into broadcasting and go to the top someday. That is my goal. That is my goal. That is my goal. You know, to me, at the end of the day right now, it has to come down to the fact right now, like, you know, can I live up to his status? There is nobody.
There's nobody that can
ever going to top John Madden's status.
ever.
There's not a day in my mind. And, you know, he's called every Super Bowl, pretty much. Not every, I shouldn't say every Super Bowl.
Almost every Super Bowl.
Almost every Super Bowl, really. I mean, you got to go back to the days of Joe Montana, where he broadcast the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Super Bowl 36, the upset game that was between New England and the Rams, the miracle game. The 48-yard field goal by Adam Vinatieri between Pat Summerterrell and John Madden. Classic. Classic broadcasting. And then really his final Super Bowl days in Super Bowl 43 with the Steelers and the Cardinals. That perfect end zone two-tap.
The game was amazing.
By Santonio Holmes in the end zone from Big Ben. A lot of legendary games. And even the times when the Patriots were undefeated, he called one of the games when they played against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles almost had a comeback win against them, almost stunning the Patriots when they came up short. Or the blowout game when they were in Buffalo when the Patriots won 55-10. I mean, there's a lot of those games that he called. But John Madden was one of the best. He's remembered for his coaching days. He's remembered a lot for his broadcasting days. His wife, Virginia, married 61 years. Sons, Mark and Joe. Great family. He's a great father, great husband, great grandfather.
Great man.
He was a great man, you know. And it's sad that the broadcasting world has lost an icon. He turned the entire NFL around with his broadcasting days. And a lot of people would say, what would happen if there was no John Madden? What if John Madden kept on coaching? What if John Madden never went into broadcasting? But I don't think the interest of broadcasting would have grown.
Yeah, most likely.
We won't see a lot of broadcasting schools last. You know, we wouldn't see a lot. We wouldn't see Full Sail University probably. We probably wouldn't see these broadcasting schools in Connecticut. You know, hell, maybe Fox Sports would have never been a place to go. We would probably see, you know, below average or mid-average broadcasters who are trying to make their way into business, and they would fail because there wasn't a legendary, iconic figure before that time. Now you had Vince Scully, you had Pat Summertell, you have Jim Nance, right now you have Tony Romo, but Romo's on a different level, and he's nowhere even in the conversation.
Romo basically just started. So
Romo started 4 or 5 years ago. He's got a long way to go. And I got to be honest. I mean, there would be no Joe Buck today. There would be no Jim Nance. There would be, you know, really honestly, they'd just be football players who just wouldn't have the voice. John Madden had the voice. He was, and honestly, there'd be no Madden football games.
Facts.
There would be probably NFL 2K games. Maybe there would be like those football games that you see in the bowling alleys where you play.
I mean, no, there would always be a football game, but what if it?
No, I'm not saying no.
What if it been called?
Exactly. What do you call that? The Tony Romo game?
The Tony Romo game.
You're gonna call that the Joe Buck game? You're gonna call that the Buck? I mean, granted, you could have had Joe Buck's father be the name of it, but that's not the same. There'd be no
Buck.
Exactly. Yeah. There'd be no Madden NFL games. You know.
Yeah.
It's just, and really, it'd be a debate on whether or not Madden would be even in the Hall of Fame for his one Super Bowl championship. Think about it. He was only a head coach in the NFL at that point, or coaching around the NFL for about 12 or 13 years. So think about that. Would he be in the NFL Hall of Fame in 2006? We don't know. But it's a good thing that he was in the position that he was in. You know, who he worked with in the past, who got into the dance in the first place, and the players who just worked, who were able to do interviews with. You know, he had a fond time with Brett Favre. Brett Favre and John Madden always share laughs. There were stories about with him and Lawrence Taylor. You know, him and Joe Montana. If you haven't watched the All Madden documentary, be sure to watch that. That was an awesome documentary. I spent time watching that today, and it was some heavy stuff, man. It actually made me learn about John Madden and what his life was like. He hated flying on the airplane, had a panic attack, and he never flew a plane ever again. That was back in 1980. He has never been on a plane since 1980. Think about that for a minute. Think about that man right there who's larger than life, couldn't handle air travel. He tried going through a train to travel to certain places, coast to coast. Not doable. Not doable in his day of age either. So, and he decided to take the Greyhound bus. He took a bus to travel in his broadcasting days. Couldn't really do it in the NFL as a coach because it's almost impossible. But he did it here in this case here in his broadcasting days. And that was the most memorable thing. In fact, if they even have an autographed version of that out somewhere, I'm going to buy it. That's the first thing I'll buy. But when I heard the story about John Madden being afraid of air travel, I always knew about the bus story. I just never knew why he never went on a plane. But when he had a panic attack and he was in the 1980s, I was
you understand, yeah.
I just was shocked by that. A guy who was larger than life, showed no fear, was just afraid of being 20,000, 30,000 feet in the air. I mean, it's just almost insane when you think about it, really. And now the one guy who revolutionized the game of football, coaching and broadcasting, is no longer with us. It puts a hole in my stomach, you know?
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, it just, his sportscasting career, I mean, and really he started out in CBS Sports in 1979. So right after he retired from coaching at age 42. So he was probably around 42, 43 when he started. He was a color commentator from 1979, working as a low profile during his first years. Was elevated to top football broadcasting duo with Pat Summerall. There we go. I've been calling him Summertail. I don't know why I'm doing that. But Pat Summerall was also another great guy. And Madden was, and I don't know why they put him down as a color commentator. If you think about it, he was more of a play-by-play guy. Color commentators are usually the ones that open up saying, "Hello, everyone," you know. But yeah. He was replacing Tom Bruckershire in 1981. He was originally with Tom Bruckershire before Madden took over, and those two were like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, it was perfect the way those two were calling games. Madden was also paired with Vin Scully, I mentioned before, Dick Stockton, Frank Gilbert, and Gary Bender. But the team of Madden and Summerall, and I can make the argument right now, Madden and Al Michaels was also one of the most iconic calls, I think, at this point. Summerall and Al Michaels had a similar way of color commentating and around like that. Now, I think Al Michaels was more ecstatic. But in terms of chemistry and certain things, I think Summerall and Al Michaels is like a tie as far as that goes. When he joined Fox Sports, he was around from Fox Sports from 94 and 2001. Again, he was General Electric offered to make Madden a worldwide spokesman, and GE would build him a luxury train. And that after he almost joined ABC, he would have actually skipped over Fox and joined ABC. And Madden and Summerall actually, moved themselves from CBS to the to Fox, giving the network more credibility. And that was all thanks to one man, Rupert Murdoch, basically the crown jewel of all sports world programming, basically one of the biggest names in the sports world back in the early 80s and 90s, really. Madden's contract paid him more annually than the NFL ever did. However, Fox was losing, let's say, $4.4 billion in the NFL contract for that 8-year deal. That it was signed in 1998, even though Madden left 3 years into that, obviously, into ABC Sports, which went from 02 to 05 to NBC Sports from 06 to 08. Now, we know the story about that, but this is the thing, and people wonder to this day right now, has broadcasting, kind of sunk a little bit? There's people that are rising up now, I think now because of this now. Now, I don't know if they'll ever top John Madden, if there's ever going to be another head
I don't think there'll ever be another one.
Exactly.
Like John Madden.
That will replicate John Madden's, personality. No. John Madden was an icon. He's an icon on the NFL field, off the NFL field, in broadcasting, off broadcasting. You've seen him in tons of commercials. You've seen him in Outback Steakhouse commercials. You've seen him on that, what was it, a Titan commercials.
Seeing commercials everywhere.
I mean, this guy was, and I remember seeing those commercials at my grandfather's house when I would watch football with him. We would always watch those commercials, and I would just die laughing of the Titan tail. It was like that at preventing athlete's foot, and you can't miss it. I mean, it was a funny commercial. But that right there in of itself, I mean, if you had to say right now, if it wasn't for Dick Ebersol, who was working for NBC Sports, who was the president of NBC Sports, and Robert Murdoch right now, they would have missed out on a huge opportunity with John Madden. There would be no question about that. And you could argue right now, since John Madden left Fox Sports, I mean, Fox Sports has really never been the same when it comes to NFL broadcasting. It was one of the weakest ones ever. And I think CBS Sports took a hit, but at least they were going to make up for it. John Madden, in his broadcasting career, I don't think has ever had a bad night broadcasting. Never had a bad night off of chemistry. And people are wondering now, like, even with the pandemic, would have been hard during this past year if he was still broadcasting. Would have been hard for him to do it from the pandemic. I think John Madden would have found a way to make it work. Definitely. He assumed. He probably would be broadcasting this freaking bus, for Christ's sakes, trying to drive to the game. I mean, I can see it now. He's told that he can't come to the stadium. He say F that, and he would drive his bus.
Let's go on the bus. Like, okay.
Ride his bus in, and maybe he'd do it from his lounge. Maybe he would have Brett Favre alongside. Maybe he would have President Bush aside. Maybe he would have Al Michaels aside in this bus. Maybe he would have Virginia call it. I mean, imagine that one, having your wife on the ride with you. You don't know if you're going to live tomorrow. You would go in there via Zoom, broadcasting a football game with your wife. That would have been a nice touch right there. But I don't think she'd have to travel, really, honestly, too. You never know. But point is, if John Madden were to broadcast today and during these crazy times in the pandemic, he would find a way to make that happen. And I think, and you know something, I think I have John Madden's personality, but do I have his like voice and everything like that? No, but am I adventurous like him? Oh yes, for sure. There's no doubt about that. And imagine John Madden doing his own podcast, learning more about his life. I mean, this, what was on Fox this past Christmas was not really a podcast thing, but it was like an all thought out, perfectly produced production of his life. And that's the best thing Fox has ever done in maybe 25 years. Just going to leave it at that. Fox Sports coverage, for the first time in 25 years, actually did something fantastic. Documentary was tremendous. Was worth the watch. You can probably find it on Hulu. You could probably find it on ESPN.com. You could probably find it on YouTube. There's a lot of things you can find on YouTube these days, but this right there is worth the watch. Very, very sad news about John Madden.
Insane.
I mean, we thought this year would end on a very good note, and then it's dead with a giant knife stuck right in my heart for John Madden to pass away.
Yeah.
So, rest in peace to the family. I mean, rest in peace to John. Sorry, rest in peace to John Madden and his family. Our condolences to the family. I almost botched that whole thing up right there.
Yeah.
So that is
for a rest easy, John.
Yeah. Again, this was very sad, to say the least.
Very sad, unexpected.
And this Sunday, the NFL is going to pay tribute to John Madden. Every football team will be paying tribute to John Madden as of this weekend. That was announced on Tuesday for Week 17's games. We will do our picks for Week 17 on Saturday. So we'll be doing that right now. This is it for the tribute video. Very short, very to the point.
Short, sweet, yep.
And just remember this. John Madden, if it wasn't for you, I would never want to pursue broadcasting. I probably want to pursue playing for the NFL. But with my history of concussions, it was kind of impossible for me to even be on a football team. But it never.
For me, I probably wouldn't be interested in Madden games as is.
Yeah.
Right Grow now, up playing Madden.
I would never be undefeated in Madden football games. I wouldn't be blowing people out by 30 or 40 points with your games. With your articulation, with your call of the thing, it made me learn about football. It really did. It inspired me to learn about football. It inspired me every Sunday to watch every NFL football game that comes on TV. It doesn't even have to be my team. I can watch anybody. I don't care who it is. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be even doing this podcast right now. I wouldn't be, into sports. Heck, I would be probably right now into freaking tap dancing for all I know. But no, I wouldn't. But I'm not into tap dancing. I ain't into ballet. I'm into sports. I'm into sports for a reason. And that reason right there is you, John Madden. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you once again for that. And, right now, with every fiber of my being, you will be hearing the future broadcaster for CBS Sports, for Fox Sports, for NBC Sports. Will I be good as John Madden?
ESPN.
No, but I will just be at that level. Because I will have the Madden vibe.
Let's never.
I'm not going to be the biggest. I'm not the next John Madden.
There'll never be another John
Madden. I am the one
Madden.
and only Joseph Olivo. And for this episode concluding,
Mhm.
for episode 11, let us interrupt you once again. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Mhm.
Stay masked. Get vaccinated. You want to get vaccinated? Good for you. Again, I'm signing off. Subscribe. Follow me on social media. You know the drill. Joseph
Me too.
Olivo.
Michael Smith.
Good night.
Good night.